Hey, welcome to Joey's Helping Others. Today I'm super excited because I'm doing a book review. And for those that don't know, I don't really read that much. I mean, I read a ton online. I read blogs, I read news, and there's just a lot of things I read online, but I do not read books. I don't enjoy reading books. They're hard for me to read, um, which is kind of crazy because I read 1,500 pages of theory per class, three classes per semester for 5 years, getting my master's and PhD. But it wasn't something I considered like fun. It was something I needed to do. I needed to understand the theory, and it was part of the process. And I have ADHD, and I just have it's hard for me to pay attention to a page, and so finding a book that I want to read just off the bat is tough. I've listened to a couple of books recently. David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me is one of my favorite books to listen to. But this particular book, I want to say I saw it posted on Instagram or on YouTube or something like that. And I just went and pre-ordered it right away. And I'm gonna have it right here. It's Chris Harris, Variable Valve Timings Memoirs of a Car Tragic. And I don't know, it just caught my eye. And so I ordered it. I think it was supposed to arrive in like, I don't know, February or March. And I think if I were to talk to Chris, he would probably have some story about how it became much more difficult to produce this book than he thought it was going to be, or something along those lines. Because I just got it a couple of weeks ago, and it's been something here. I'll kind of put it right here for a second. There we go. We'll have it there. And actually, I can put it up here. There we go. And now he's looking at me or behind me, or kind of looking at that Truman photo. Anyways, I like being playful. So, but yeah, so I got the book, and one of the things I've been doing in life is like trying to slow things down. I do so much that I realized that it was kind of like my ADHD kind of driving my life more than me driving my life. And and it's cool because like I can multitask, I can do all these things, and I can focus when I need to. But I tended for the past like 3 or 4 years to let that really drive my life, and it's been like a controlled chaos, and I enjoy it, and I do really well in it. The problem is that I get overwhelmed at certain points, and it can be overwhelming not because of like things are going bad. I can even have things just go so well, but in so many different areas that it overwhelms me, and I kind of just shut down. So I had that happen a year ago, and this whole past year, that's what I've been working on, is figuring out like who am I at 42, 43 years old now. What is it that I want out of life? What is it that I want to do? And how do I find that peace? Because like my blood pressure was crazy, my blood sugars were, a little high, and I wasn't, I was like healthy, but they were literally getting out of control because of how I felt. So, so that's what I've been working on this whole year, is just trying to refine myself. And for whatever reason, this book was like calling me off of the internet and saying, Joey, check this book out. It's got to be great. It's Chris Harris, who, for those that don't know who Chris Harris is, he's an amazing car reviewer, and he is someone that I definitely developed a parasocial relationship with after reading this book. I don't feel like I know him, but I feel like what he wrote, I identified with so much that it was hard to kind of disassociate it as him. Like, because I know his voice, and I hear his voice in the book, and so it's really interesting. It was really weird, as a professor that teaches popular culture and teaches about parasocial relationships. It was really weird to kind of be reading this and just being like, man, I would really love to talk to Chris. Like I would love to like meet him and discuss, what like his book and discuss like a little bit more in depth about it because there's some things he like doesn't address that not that he needs to, but that I just am interested in beyond cars. Because I felt like I saw a lot of me in his book. Not in that I'm supposed to be a world famous car reviewer, but I see a lot of imposter syndrome. Um, I see a lot of things where to everyone else you look highly successful, but to yourself, if you don't feel that way, um, it rings different. It rings like you can be having great amounts of success, but it's a process, and that's something that I definitely saw in his book or read in his book, and so I really I really enjoyed that, and you would probably laugh that I say that, but I really did enjoy seeing that like one person's success is another person's misery sometimes, and also some people's misery is like your success. And I think one of the other things that I really liked is that, um, and he may or may not agree with this, is like I feel like he has a level of morals and ethics that kind of let him sniff out people that are being disingenuous. And that's something I've always really had a hard time with is like having quote a big mouth and someone that causes some waves and is willing to sacrifice whoa, I almost dropped my light. There we go. Willing to sacrifice quote success so that I can kind of stay within the morals and ethics that I want to be in. And I'm not saying that Chris and I or whoever, who if you're listening, I'm not saying that you're supposed to be the most ethical and nicest person at all times in the sense of in retrospect, like looking back and going like, yeah, see, I've been perfect this whole time. It's like, no, that's not what I'm talking about. We all make mistakes, we all mess up, and it's how we reconcile with them. But it is how we recognize them and reconcile with them. That's something that you can change. That's something that you can still can change. And so it was really interesting, reading through his book and hearing about the different things he's gone through in his life. The way he grew up as a kid, interested in cars, is very much the same way I did. I grew up with American magazines, so it was Car and Driver, Motor Trend, and Road and Track, mostly Motor Trend and Road and Track, and those being very formative of for me. And there were other things too. I'm not going to go into it in depth on this post, but I'll just say that, I learned to drive on a racetrack. My brothers worked at Malibu Grand Prix, which was this really anomaly kind of place in the 80s where they had single car race cars that you could drive around a timed track. And that's how I learned to drive when I was like 13, 14 years old. And I learned about tire patch and apexes before I ever hit the road. And when I did hit the road, I learned to drive from my brothers when I was like 15 on the road because my brother was 18, and it was just perfect for me to be able to have someone that's not quite an adult let me drive the car, and we drove that car. And so, hearing the early stories that he has to share really resonated with me. The way he writes is very much, I wouldn't say it's the way I write, but it's very much in the vein of a tone I aspire to have, um, and can be seen in some of the writings I do about cars. And then his just his journey and trajectory is one that fascinated me as someone that has also been trying to figure out this industry. I did my dissertation on online and offline automotive culture in Central Texas and studied street racing, road racing, and drag racing for my dissertation back from 2007 to 2010, which, was this huge switch of from television to internet. And then the preceding 10 years after that, from 2010 to 2011, I mean 2020, which Chris, has like this firsthand knowledge of and went through and experienced and is still experiencing this whole transition. Um, and you also get to see that this journey is one that just is it's still going. It's a journey that's still happening. I don't know. I just really enjoyed this book. I highly recommend you check it out, whether you're an entrepreneur, a car enthusiast, someone that's trying to understand that there's a granularity to life that doesn't like success is a moment. It doesn't stay with you, if that makes sense. It's something that we're always chasing, and for I think most of us, if you're a highly successful person, which I consider myself a highly successful person, and many other people that I know, uh, you're your biggest critic. And I think that's one of the things that keeps you motivated and keeps you going and keeps you humble is that your shit stinks just as much as everyone else's. And so it's something that we're like cognizant of and something that we're working towards. And this book is a really has a lot of great examples of that. The only thing I didn't identify with whatsoever was his drinking. And that's because I don't drink. I've never had any alcohol. Maybe like a sip or two over the past 43 years of my life. And because I saw it destroy like different people's lives in my life. And I knew I just don't see myself wired to handle that. And I see it going really bad for me. So I just don't do it. I don't do any drugs. And so I'm kind of seen as lame like that, but at the same time, like I see how it plays a role in so many people's lives, and it's tough. It's really, really tough. So that's definitely something that I saw an overtone in this book about too, that isn't directly discussed, but it's just throughout the book. You see, people are real. We all deal with our situations in very real ways. So yeah, so this is a great book. I can't recommend it enough. As a book itself, like say you were to get this book physically, uh there are some things that are cool about it. It does have like some gloss page photo inserts. And this is something not only I would totally do, but I've done in like when I blog and write is like include photos of like uh different times in my childhood and just all kinds of different things. And I loved this insert. It's a great insert. He does it twice in the book, and I'd also rate this as a pretty easy read if you have watched any content of Chris Harris's. Um, it should be a pretty easy read because he writes in his voice, which I really really like. So, anyways, I can't say enough good things about this book. Check it out. It's about 250 pages. It took me 3 or 4 days to read just casually, like about 30 minutes to an hour each day. And yeah, I can go on and on, but I'll save that for another one. For this review, I don't want to like I've already given maybe a couple of spoilers, but nothing too major. Um, there's some great stories in it, and I don't know. I treated this book like I treated David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me book, in the sense that it's a piece where someone isn't trying to be they're not trying to portray themselves as a hero. They're not trying to portray themselves as perfect. They're letting you into their life, and they're letting you kind of get a palpable feel for some of the experiences they've had and let you be the judge of what you want to take away from it and what kind of lessons you want to learn from it, and or share with others. So I mean I was like my wife was like looking at me like you haven't read you haven't sat down and read a book in like since grad school almost, especially for fun. Um, but I will give a shout out. This is the last thing I'll say. I will give a shout out to my nieces. I have four nieces who read adamantly. They go to the library every Sunday and they're reading books nonstop. And my son, who's 8, has starting reading books nonstop, reading because he's still learning to read. He has ADHD like me, and it's interesting, but it's interesting to see yourself in your kid too. Um, but uh, but yeah, it's that definitely motivated me to start like looking at books again and finding quietness, finding a space where I have to stop and I can't do anything but this. I'm not riding my trainer, watching a movie, thinking about things, and like doing all these different things. Like when I'm reading something I'm enjoying, like I'm present in it, and that can be a very rewarding thing when you find a good book like that. So I hope y'all enjoyed this review, and I hope y'all check out Chris's book. It's amazing, and I can't recommend it enough. So y'all have a wonderful day. I'm always making more content. I've got some vinyl reviews I'm going to be doing soon, so stay tuned and take it easy.